Welcome back. Time to welcome Matthew. Hello, Matthew. So, calls for a banking union in Europe are getting a lot louder.
Yes, that's right, Claire. This idea is really gathering momentum. Yesterday, we had the Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy talking about the need for a banking union. And today, we're going to hear from the EU's Internal Market Commissioner, Michel Barnier. He's going to be talking about some proposals that could be seen as a first step towards a banking union. Well, we can go over to Brussels and join our correspondent there, Frédéric Simon, who can tell us a little bit more. Morning, Frédéric, and thank you for joining us. Can I start by asking you what we can expect to hear today?
Well, as you said, Michel Barnier wants to put an end to the bank bailouts that come at the taxpayers' expense. We've seen many banks being bailed out in 2008, and banks will now need to draw up plans in advance to cope with possible stress scenarios and overcome difficulties on their own. Each one of them would be obliged to set aside at least 1% of their deposits for a special fund to finance the resolution of a possible banking crisis. And if the banks are unable to overcome a crisis on their own, well, the public authorities in all EU countries will be given the power to restructure them, replacing the management if needed, and force losses onto the bondholders. And this remains, of course, very topical now as we see the Spanish banking sector running into serious trouble and possibly having to ask for an EU bailout, although this plan will probably come too late for them.
Frédéric, Claire Pride here. Is this then a first step towards a banking union?
Yes, and this banking union is actually one crucial element of what the European Central Bank says is needed to secure the euro's future. Barnier's proposal today would include an obligation on all EU countries to lend to a government that doesn't have the reserves to tackle the banking crisis on its own. But of course, this is not to the taste of everyone. Germany, for example, is reluctant to sign up to a European scheme that would see its taxpayers pay for the restructuring of banks in other countries. And Britain, of course, fiercely resists any attempt by Brussels to impose EU controls over the City of London. So another proposal that is likely to go down easily. And this will be one of the topics at the next EU summit at the end of this month.
Frédéric Simon, thank you very much for joining us from Brussels. Now, Matthew, Spain is making calls for steps towards the kind of banking union that we've just been hearing about.
That's right, Claire. Well, as you say, Frédéric was saying there that Spain's really at the heart of this whole storm at the moment. Yesterday, we had their budget minister saying, he said, in fact, that Spain does not have the door to the markets open. What he meant by that was their borrowing costs are just getting too high for them to really cope with. And yesterday, we heard from the Prime Minister, Mariano Rajoy, who had added his voice to calls for a European banking union.
On the day that Spain's Treasury Minister said the government's borrowing rates are so high that it's effectively barred from the markets, Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy outlined a number of measures necessary to restore confidence in the banking sector and the euro.
In my opinion, it needs fiscal integration with a fiscal authority and the integration of the banking sector, a banking union with Eurobonds, with a supervising entity and a European Deposit Guarantee Fund.
Rajoy's call for mutualized debt will not please Germany, which is worried that its banks would have to bail out banks from other nations. On the other hand, Rajoy has added his voice to the growing chorus calling for a European banking union. Banks would be charged an annual levy of 1% of deposits. The money would be held in reserve and used in an emergency to prop up troubled banks with guarantees or loans. On Tuesday, the German finance minister too endorsed the idea. It would include deposit guarantees, a central banking oversight body, a pan-European bank restructuring system. Such a framework could help Spain's more vulnerable banks. The government has pledged to rescue its ailing lender, Bankia, and has asked Europe for help to do so. But Germany says any EU aid would have to come with supervision of Spain's banking system. A banking union would provide that oversight, but it would not come into effect before 2014, which may be too late to help Spain.
We're going to take a look at the markets now, and it looks like they've been moving positively for a change.
Yes, that's right, Claire. A bit more optimism around yesterday on the back of a feeling that maybe central banks are going to help with a bit of stimulus. Let's take a look at the US. how things closed on Wall Street yesterday. Markets there were up. Makes a bit of a change to see some positive movement there. We will have today as well the European Central Bank meeting. They will be looking at their interest rates, so markets very keenly awaiting that to see what happens. Bit of news we can give you that's come in overnight for us as well on Australia on their GDP growth. The economy there still doing well. They were expected to do about 0.7% in the first quarter. They almost doubled that. That's annual growth of 4.3%, which is really good results for Australia there. Over in Asia, we can take a look at what's been happening with markets there, and it's been a bit of a mixed picture. We've got the Nikkei up 1.5%. Shanghai was down earlier in trading, but now it's also joined the others and is moving a bit up as well. Well, we can also take a look at some of the day's company news, and brokerage companies that lost out when Facebook floated may be compensated. New York's Nasdaq exchange is expected to take the first steps towards compensation on Wednesday. Some companies claim they lost $100 million after software glitches on Nasdaq at the stock's listing.
Olympus shares rose to their highest level in 3 months on Wednesday. The company was boosted by reports of a €500 million investment by Panasonic. Olympus is still recovering from a €1.4 billion accounting fraud. The scandal led to widespread management changes and a halving of the share price.
And Abu Dhabi's Etihad airline has bought a 4% stake in Virgin Australia. It's the fourth time this year that the airline has taken a stake in another one. Recent investments include stakes in Air Berlin, Air Seychelles and Aer Lingus. Etihad's looking to expand its global presence with the acquisitions.
Now, Matthew, Disney is taking a stand against junk food.
Yes, they are. And they've received some plaudits from the First Lady in the US, Michelle Obama, over this. They've said that they're going to take junk food advertising off all of their channels, which of course are aimed at children. This is all part of a fight to tackle the growing obesity problem in the US and elsewhere, of course. But in the US, it's estimated about 17% of children are obese, and it's getting worse. They think that 42% will be obese by 2030. So they say they're going to take junk food advertising off. They're still to define exactly what that means, who will be allowed on and who won't, but they will do that. And Michelle Obama, she called it a game changer for the health of our children, she said. So happy about that.
You do often see images of her exercising and encouraging children to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
So this is obviously very close to her heart.
Very close. She's made it a major theme of what she's been doing.
Now, another big American company will have a French accent.
Yes, that's right. This is, I suppose, also fast food in a way. Starbucks we're talking about here, although not quite the same. But they've been trying to increase the amount of food they sell as well as coffee, because they see a lot of fast food outlets selling a lot of coffee as well too. So what they have decided to do is spend $100 million to buy a bakery chain. It's got a French name, La Boulange. It's over in the US, this chain. Now, what they say they're going to do, and I wasn't really sure about this, but they say they're going to replace all their current baked goods, muffins and all those kinds of things, with...
Yeah, it's pretty good shortbread.
Exactly, all of that with croissant and French things. Now, I'm not sure how that will go down, and I always feel part of the appeal is that you can get a nice muffin in Starbucks rather than French things there. But that's what they say they're going to do, and for them, food is really important. They say it generates about $1.5 billion of revenue for them each year. So we'll see how that goes and what they'll do in France, of course, where there's plenty of boulangeries already selling that kind of
Exactly. Not
fare.
sure people go to Starbucks for croissant, but you never know.
So.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That's it for business, and that's it from me for now. Do stay tuned for all the latest headlines with Stuart Norval.
Ukraine has invested billions in hosting Euro 2012. But faced with shady construction firms, contracts obtained without invitations to tender, and costly renovations, some people are wondering where the money really went. France 24 went to find out. Reporters, Thursday, 9:45 p.m. Paris time on France 24.